Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel. Tap the notification bell. I'd appreciate it majorly. One of the suspects, or the third suspect in the killing of Tessa Majors that happened last week, last Wednesday. It's almost a full week on the 11th. Is on the run, or there's a manhunt underway for a 14-year-old suspect who reportedly was on his way to police, I guess, to turn himself in or be questioned by police. He had been identified, I assume, by the 13-year-old and by police. He was being driven by either an attorney or a family member. When apparently he leapt out of the car and took off. And this is around 4 p.m. last night. And the manhunt, the search is still underway. As of last night around 9:45 p.m., they were still searching for him. But this morning, there's no reports of him being, taken into custody. They were focusing, and so they were searched. There was a massive search through, last night, and they were focusing on 125th Street, which is right here. The incident actually took place right here at 116th West and Morningside Drive. Those steps where the stabbing, reportedly or allegedly took place, that's where it is. So it's not very far from there. I guess this is Harlem, the Harlem area. I don't know New York City terribly well. Columbia University's right in, right there. And Barnard, the all-girls school that she attended, is the sister school of Columbia. I wasn't aware of that previously. But so they were focusing on Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard and Frederick Douglass Boulevard and 125th Street. In between those two streets on 125th, in that area is where they were searching all last night, and apparently hasn't been found yet. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before this suspect is taken into custody. There was another suspect, another 14-year-old, arrested on last Friday, but was released, I believe, the very next day, as they build their case. That's how it's reported at the New York Post, or Fox News, excuse me, and the New York Post. The third suspect, 14, was also arrested on Friday, but released on Saturday as cops continued to build their case, sources said. And this isn't the same suspect, even though it says was also arrested on Friday. They mean in addition to the 13-year-old, I believe. This is the 14-year-old suspect that was arrested on Friday is not this 14-year-old suspect that, fled last night, that was in transit with an attorney or a relative to be turn himself into authorities or to be questioned by authorities when he bolted out of the car. That's not the same 14-year-old that was arrested on Friday. And allegedly, or reportedly, the 14-year-old that they're searching for, as of last night, he is supposedly the person who stabbed her to death, who actually, whether or not the other individual, the other 14-year-old, had anything to do with the actual stabbing of her, I don't believe so, but the details aren't totally clear. The 13-year-old who's been arrested was arrested early on and basically confessed to participating in the robbery and the stabbing. Claims that he didn't do the actual stabbing, that he watched his two friends, one of them put her in the chokehold and the other one wrestling with her too, and one of the two of them stabbing her with, I believe, that knife that was left at the scene or found at the scene, a 4-inch blade, a 4-inch folding pocket knife, which is a fairly large, knife, pocket knife, like buck knife, I would, or something like that. 4 inches is pretty long for a pocket knife, and that's probably a fairly fat blade, being that it's 4 inches long, and I'm just doing some deduction. So, I think some people are wondering. There's lots of, there's a lot around this case that's already been reported. The head of the police sergeants union, I think his name's Ed Mullen, who was basically saying that she was in the park to buy weed, and people and the family was outraged by that, and I'd say rightfully so. He claims now that his words were taken out of context and that his words were twisted. I think he was speaking on a radio program when he said that, and he has a long-standing feud with the mayor de Blasio, who is many people perceive as being basically anti-cop. But at the same time, it seemed as though, my initial reaction was that that was a way to deflect from blame in the rise in crime in the park in recent months over the last year. I don't know the statistics specifically, but I think he was claiming that the lack of enforcement on marijuana laws is what in general contributed to this situation. That's what I think his argument basically was. Maybe not. I may be characterizing it wrong. But other persons with this particular part of the case, the fact that the 14-year-old was being driven by a relative and an attorney to turn himself in, why he wasn't just taken into custody by police, why they didn't basically go to wherever he was and take him, arrest him, is a question I think people have, especially in something as gruesome and serious as this crime. And allegedly this is the person who actually was the person who did the stabbing. Why he was permitted to basically be brought in by a lawyer or a family member is a question people have today, and it's a normal question. On Monday night, the 14-year-old was being driven by a lawyer or a relative to speak to detectives when the car came to a stop at an intersection in Harlem. He took the opportunity to flee and has since been on the run. The driver of the car called police at 4 p.m. to let them know what happened. On Tuesday morning, New York PD spokesman refused to answer questions on the specifics of how he was able to escape and why he was making his own way to the station instead of being picked up by police, given the seriousness of the alleged crime. According to the 13-year-old boy already in custody, it was the 14-year-old who escaped, who delivered the fatal blow last Wednesday evening. Majors, an 18-year-old student at Barnard College, was walking through Morningside Park on the Upper West Side when she was attacked last Wednesday around 5:30 p.m. Since then, there have been conflicting reports on as to how many people were involved in the attack and who has been questioned for it. So, that's pretty much the update of what's going on so far. The 13-year-old, by many reports, is being processed through the juvenile courts. Whether or not the 14-year-old will be, tried as an adult or processed in a different way, the one that bolted out of the car because he's the one who allegedly actually delivered the fatal stabbing blows, whether he'll be processed or tried differently through the normal criminal courts. So the 13-year-old boy is going through family court, as I understand it, which. As I understand, once if through that system, through the juvenile system, once he becomes 18, that's the end of it. So whether or not this 14-year-old, if he in fact did deliver the fatal stabbing, if he'll be treated differently and go through criminal court and tried as an adult, remains to be seen. And but I wouldn't really have any idea at this stage. And that's pretty much the story there, man. It's so terrible for this family who, it's just terrible. Christmas is going to be here in a few days, and she's not going to be with them. It's just so sad. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.